Something happened to you yesterday. Not a big thing. Not the kind of thing you could explain to someone else without watching their expression go politely blank. It was quieter than that and more precise. A feeling that arrived without announcement somewhere behind your sternum. A weight that didn't belong to whatever you were doing in that moment. Maybe you were in the middle of something completely ordinary, folding laundry or driving somewhere familiar, when it moved through you like a current. Like something was pulling at a thread attached to a place inside you that you thought you had learned to leave alone. And your first instinct, before your rational mind could catch up, was to reach for your phone. Not because you expected anything, but because something in you was listening for a sound that wasn't there. I know that feeling. And I want to spend some real time with you today, because what I need to say to you goes deeper than what you're probably expecting to hear. Stay with me through all of it, because the part that changes things is not at the beginning. It arrives later when you're ready for it. Let me start with what's real. Carl Jung spent the better part of his professional life studying something that the rational scientific world of his era was deeply uncomfortable with. He called it the collective unconscious, not the personal unconscious, the place where your own memories and repressions live. Something beneath that. Something shared. Jung believed that underneath the individual mind, beneath the specific experiences of any single human life, there exists a deeper layer of psyche that belongs to all of us simultaneously. A substrate of human experience that we all draw from and all contribute to, without consciously knowing we're doing it. He came to this conclusion not through mysticism, but through his patience. Through the dreams of people who had never read mythology describing mythological imagery with perfect precision. Through the symbols that appeared across cultures with no apparent contact. Through the experiences people reported of knowing things they had no logical way of knowing. Well, Jung was not a romantic about this. He was a scientist, a skeptic, a man who demanded that the inner world be taken as seriously as the outer one. And what he found, when he took it seriously, was that human beings are not the isolated, bounded, separate units we experience ourselves to be. We are more porous than that, more connected than our daytime rational minds are comfortable acknowledging. And nowhere does that porousness show up more powerfully than in the bonds formed between two people in genuine emotional intimacy. So yes, what you felt yesterday was real. I want you to hold that. Because what I'm about to tell you next is the part most content in this space skips entirely. Not because it's complicated, because it's uncomfortable, and you deserve the uncomfortable truth more than you deserve comfortable reassurance. There is a concept in Jungian psychology called projection, and it is the single most important thing you can understand about why this particular person has taken up so much space inside you. Here is what projection actually is, not the watered-down version, but the real one. Every human being carries within them what Jung called the shadow. The shadow is not simply the dark side of personality. It is everything about yourself that has not yet been integrated into consciousness. The parts of you that were shut down early, the qualities you were taught were unacceptable, the emotions you learned to suppress because expressing them produced consequences you couldn't afford. Those parts don't disappear. They go underground. They become the shadow. And the shadow, because it cannot express itself directly through consciousness, finds another way to make itself known. It reaches outward. It locates in another person the qualities it carries internally. And it responds to those qualities with an intensity that completely bypasses rational thought. This is what we call falling. This is what we call the feeling that this person is different from everyone else, that this person sees you in a way others can't, that this person reaches something in you that nothing else touches. That pull is real, but it is not only about them. It is, in significant part, about you, about the part of yourself you have been meeting in them. I need you to sit with that. Not to dismiss what you feel, but to understand it more fully than you have before. Now, let me tell you what this person is actually going through right now. Because you did feel something yesterday. That part of the other script you may have heard is not wrong. The connection between two people who have genuinely reached each other at this depth does not simply evaporate because physical distance or silence exists between them. Jung understood that the unconscious does not operate according to geography, that the emotional bonds formed between people exist in a layer of psyche that is not bounded by physical space the way conscious experience is. When someone you have loved at this depth goes through a moment of internal reckoning, you can feel it, not because of magic, because the part of you that was attuned to them during the relationship doesn't simply switch off when the relationship changes form. You built a receptor for them, and that receptor is still picking up signals. What this person is experiencing right now is what Jung called a confrontation with the unconscious. This happens when the defenses of the ego begin to fail, when the strategies a person has been using to maintain psychological comfort, the distractions, the pride, the narrative of having made the right choice, begin to lose their effectiveness. And what floods in when those defenses crack is not simply emotion. It is everything the psyche has been storing beneath the defenses, the grief that was never processed, the doubt about decisions made from fear rather than clarity, the recognition, arriving without permission, that something real was abandoned. This is the breakdown you sensed. It is happening. It is real. But here is where I need to offer you something different from what most voices in this space will offer you. Understanding that this person is suffering does not tell you what to do with that knowledge, and the question of what to do with it is the most important question in this entire conversation. Let me tell you about a woman. I'll call her Elena. Elena had been in a relationship for 2 years with a man who moved toward her with extraordinary intensity and then, without warning she could understand at the time, began to pull back. Not completely, partially. Enough to create that particular confusion that is worse than a clean ending. The intermittent warmth. The moments of profound connection followed by days of something that felt like practiced distance. Elena felt everything you're feeling right now. She felt the pull of him, even across silence. She woke in the early hours with the specific sensation of his presence and found her hand reaching for her phone before she was fully conscious. She believed, because she could feel the reality of the connection between them, that the intensity of what they had shared was itself the evidence that it should find its way back. That feeling, this strongly meant that resolution was coming, that the universe, as she understood it, does not create connections this real only to dissolve them entirely. What Eleanor could not see from inside her own experience was what was actually driving the connection's intensity on her end. Her particular history, the specific way she had learned in her family of origin that love required waiting, required patience, required proving through sustained attention that she was worth returning to, had primed her nervous system to experience this exact dynamic as the deepest form of love she knew. Not because it was the deepest form of love, because it was the most familiar form. Because the uncertainty, the almost, the sense of being almost chosen, resonated with something old and true and deeply lodged in her body. This is what Jung meant by the shadow in relationships. We are not simply drawn to people who complement us. We are drawn to people who carry the qualities our unconscious has been organizing around, including and perhaps especially the qualities connected to our unresolved early experiences of love and worth. Elena's particular version of love had always felt like pursuit, had always involved an element of proof. And so a man who created the felt need to prove herself while also offering genuine moments of real connection activated every single receptor she had built over a lifetime of learning what love was supposed to feel like. The connection was real. The feeling was real. The unconscious architecture driving the intensity was also real. And the architecture was the part she needed to look at. I'm telling you Elena's story because I think you recognize something in it. Not the specific details necessarily, but something underneath them. The particular quality of a longing that feels bigger than a person, that feels like it reaches back behind the relationship into something older and more fundamental. The sense that this is not just about him, that something in you is at stake here that goes beyond whether he contacts you or doesn't. If you feel that recognition, I want you to hold it. Because that recognition is not a wound, it is a doorway. Back to what this person is experiencing right now. Here is the complete picture, the one that includes what he is feeling and what it means and what it does not mean. Yes, he is struggling. Yes, the connection you built lives in him in a way that periodically overwhelms whatever distance he has tried to construct. Yes, there are moments, possibly yesterday, when the architecture of his avoidance cracks and the truth of what he feels floods through in ways his body registers before his mind can manage them. The insomnia is real. The chest that feels heavier than it should. The way certain songs or smells arrive carrying your presence before he has consciously chosen to think about you. None of that is fiction. None of that is wishful thinking. That is the reality of genuine emotional attachment operating beneath the level of the choices his ego is making. And this is exactly where I need to say something that most voices in this space will not say to you. Because most voices in this space want you to feel hopeful and validated and to keep watching. What I want is to give you something that actually helps. His struggle does not obligate a particular outcome. His pain is not a promise. The fact that he is doing badly, genuinely doing badly, in ways that reach you across whatever distance exists between you, is real. And it is also not, by itself, evidence that what is broken between you is healable, or that healing it is what your own growth actually requires of you. Jung was very clear about something that gets lost in the romanticized versions of his ideas. The process of individuation, becoming the fullest, most integrated version of yourself, is not served by relationships that keep you waiting in a permanent state of suspended longing. The psyche moves toward wholeness. Wholeness is not found in the space between someone's silence and your hope. Wholeness is found by integrating the thing the longing is pointing toward, and the longing is pointing toward something inside you. Here is the question that I believe your soul has been trying to ask underneath every conversation you've had about this person, every night you've spent parsing what his silence means, every morning you've woken up with that pull in your chest before you're fully conscious. The question is not, does he love me? The question is not, will he come back? The question is this: what is this longing asking me to find within myself that I have been looking for in him? That question sounds simple. It is not simple. It requires sitting in a place of stillness that is genuinely uncomfortable because it asks you to turn toward yourself at the very moment every instinct is directing your attention outward. It asks you to take seriously the possibility that the intensity you have experienced in this connection, the specific quality of how deeply it has reached you, is not primarily a message about your destiny with him. It is a message about the depth of your own interior life, about your capacity for feeling, about the parts of yourself that came alive in his presence and that you have been grieving as if they only exist in relation to him. They do not only exist in relation to him, they exist in you. He was a mirror, not the source. Jung said that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. He might also have said that everything we cannot release about others can lead us to the same place. The things we cannot let go of are almost always the places where our deepest unmet needs have organized themselves around a person rather than finding their way back to us. This is not a failure. This is the work. This is exactly the work the psyche is designed to do through exactly this kind of experience. Let me come back to Elena. 18 months after the point where I introduced you to her, after months of working through exactly the question I just offered you, Elena understood something she had not been able to access earlier, what she had been drawn to in him, the specific quality of intensity followed by distance, had felt like love, because it mirrored a pattern she had internalized very early about what love was supposed to feel like. The intensity of her longing for him was real. And it was also, substantially, the longing of a younger version of herself for a quality of consistent, certain, unambiguous love that had never fully arrived and that she had spent her adult life trying to locate in relationships organized around the same fundamental uncertainty. When she stopped asking what he was feeling and started asking what she had been carrying, something shifted. Not immediately, not dramatically, but in the way that real shifts happen, quietly and completely, so that one day you look back and realize you are no longer in the same place without being able to identify the exact moment you left it. He did eventually reach out to Eleanor, and she felt something she hadn't expected to feel. Clarity. Not indifference. Not coldness. Clarity. The groundedness of a woman who had done the internal work and no longer needed the conversation to go a particular way in order to know who she was and what she deserved. That clarity, she told me later, was the thing she had actually been longing for all along. Not him. The version of herself who no longer needed his return to feel complete. I want that for you. Not as a consolation prize for a connection that didn't resolve the way you hoped. As the actual destination this experience has been preparing you for. So, what does this mean practically? What do you do with the knowledge that something real is alive in him, that he is genuinely struggling, that the connection between you has not dissolved simply because silence exists between you? You hold it gently. You do not dismiss it. The reality of the bond is real, and it deserves to be acknowledged. And you do not organize your life around it. You do not let the reality of his struggle become the reason you remain suspended in waiting rather than moving. You do not confuse the fact that he feels you with the promise that he will choose you, or even that his choosing you is the thing your healing requires. What your healing requires is the question, and the answer lives not in his next move, but in the parts of you that have been asking to be seen through this entire experience, the parts of you that came alive in his presence, the depth you discovered in yourself through the intensity of loving someone this fully, the capacity for feeling that you may have been carrying quietly your whole life without quite understanding what to do with it. These are yours. They were always yours. He was the occasion, not the owner. Jung believed that the psyche is always moving toward wholeness. Always. Even through pain. Even through experiences that feel like pure loss. Especially through those. The confrontation with the unconscious that this person is experiencing right now is part of their own movement toward wholeness. A movement they must make, if they make it, entirely of their own accord. You cannot feel it for them. You cannot accelerate it through your waiting or your distance or your hoping. Their soul's work is their soul's work, and your soul's work is yours. You felt something yesterday. That is true. What you felt was real. It was the thread of genuine connection vibrating across the distance, and underneath the feeling, beneath the pull toward your phone and the name on the edge of your consciousness, there was something else available to you in that moment. Something quieter and more sustaining than hope about him. There was the recognition of your own extraordinary capacity for depth, your own remarkable ability to feel, the specific, rare quality of a woman who loves with her whole interior world and not just the surface of herself. That quality is not a wound. It is not the thing that makes you vulnerable to exactly this kind of pain. It is the most valuable thing about you. It is the thing that makes real love possible when real love arrives in a form that can actually receive it. The question is not whether you will feel this way again. You will. This depth does not diminish. The question is where you aim it, whether you continue aiming it backward toward someone whose silence is telling you something important, or whether you begin slowly and gently and without abandoning the reality of what you feel, to aim it toward yourself, toward the life that is waiting for the version of you that is no longer standing at the edge of someone else's process. He may reach out. He may not. His soul's movement is not something you control or can predict with certainty. What you can know with certainty is this: the intensity of what you felt yesterday, the thing that arrived in your chest without warning and made you reach for your phone before you were fully conscious, that intensity belongs to you. It is your capacity, your depth, your particular quality of being alive in the world, and it deserves to be received fully, without condition, without silence that stretches into weeks and months, and the particular exhaustion of loving someone who has not yet found the courage to love you back openly. You deserve to be someone's first choice, not their inevitable return when all other options have been exhausted, not the person they come back to when they have run out of distance. Their first choice, the one they move toward with clarity and intention, and without the long silence that leaves you lying awake, scanning your chest for evidence that you are still loved. That is what you were feeling yesterday. Not only his pain, your own readiness, your own soul telling you, in the language the soul speaks, that you have done enough waiting, that the depth you carry deserves a direction, that you are the place worth coming home to, not only for him. First, and most importantly, for yourself.